Welcome to Meet the Candidates here on WCMU. I'm David Nicholas, and our guest is Bill G. Schuette. He is a Republican candidate for Michigan's redrawn 95th House District, which now includes all of Midland County, portions of Gladwin County. Bill, thanks for taking the time to be with us, and welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me, Dave. Thanks to you and WCMU. These types of candidate interviews, very important for informing voters. Thank you.
Well, in that first moment then, a chance to introduce yourself to more of the prospective voters in this district. Tell us a little bit about you, hometown, and experience you're bringing to this campaign.
For sure, Dave. And my name is Bill G. Schuette. I'm a third-generation Midlander and born and raised here. And like my aunts, like my uncle, parents, sister, went to K through 12 in Midland Public Schools. I have 2 degrees from Georgetown University. And then I served my country as an intelligence officer with the Defense Intelligence Agency. I was based in our nation's capital. I was sent down to Mexico in support of our counter-drug forces and deployed by the Defense Intelligence Agency to the Middle East, where I supported our counter-terror forces. In that position, you know, Dave, sometimes the first thing the Secretary of Defense read many mornings were intelligence memos that I prepared, and I helped author the Presidential Daily Brief. And in 2020, moved back home to Midland to work for Dow on their public policy team. So I'm familiar with the state, federal, and international issues that impact one of our largest job creators. I will tell you, Dave, I'm a 27-year-old, but I view that as an asset. We need more young people involved in public service. And if I've briefed generals at home and overseas, I can stand up for mid-Michigan and Lansing.
As you have traveled then in this district that includes your hometown, as we said, all of Midland County and then into Gladwin County, from your vantage point as a candidate, and then also, and even more importantly, what the voters are telling you as you knock on the doors, the top 1, 2, or maybe 3 issues that you see, that they see collectively that you want to address as the top priorities in this campaign.
Yeah, we've knocked on a lot of doors, just about 10,000 in the campaign across the 95th district, and I visited every single township and the 3 different cities and the village of Sanford that make up the great 95th district. And Dave, it doesn't matter if I'm up in Billings Township, down in Porter Township, my hometown of Midland, the price of gas and the price of groceries is at the top of everybody's mind. It's really incredible whether it's a carton of milk, a gallon of a carton of eggs, or a gallon of milk. It's really hitting people hard. So that's why in Lansing, a priority for me would be put more money back in the pocketbooks and wallets of hardworking mid-Michiganders, cutting their taxes, giving them more of their money back when inflation's taken more and more out. Another number 2 issue I would say I hear from voters is parents just want to have a say in their child's education. Our children were set back in the forced masking and school closures suffered during 2020. And we know, Dave, that the best outcomes for students happen when their parents are involved in their child's education. And number 3, this is a very important issue here locally in the 95th district. You can drive down US 10. And you'll see, we want to be able to see Sanford Lake again and take the boat out in Wixom Lake. Rebuilding the dams, bringing back the lakes is an important issue, but also we need to build flood reduction infrastructure. We have to resolve some of our legacy flooding issues for good.
Those infrastructure issues, from the importance of the roads, the bridges, and now this has certainly brought to light the issues of the dams, as you mentioned. Is there any sort of an estimated price tag, or do local folks who have the very much vested in personal investment in this have an idea of a price tag of what we would be looking at over term and how we would get there step by step, or investing the surplus dollars in a one-time investment? What do people feel, what do you feel would be the best approach?
Yeah, so in the latest supplemental, you did see around $200 million go towards rebuilding the dams, which is important. Now, we still have about another $50 million that we need for rebuilding the dams and that effort. And then there's also a part of the picture that I mentioned is flood reduction infrastructure. And right now, Dave, and if you look at the budget of the state of Michigan, it's a record more than $70 billion with a B dollars, and we have a $7 billion surplus. So we have an opportunity to make these select investments in critical infrastructure. here locally in the dams, in flood reduction infrastructure, but also, again, going back to that number one issue that I hear, the price of gas and the price of groceries, we need to return money back to the wallets of mid-Michigan. Those would be my budgetary priorities.
How much of an impact on inflation outside of, if it's possible to look at it this way, of bringing the dollars back to the voters and the citizens of Michigan, because inflation is something that is felt across the country. We are one state of 50. How can we best position ourselves and our citizens to address what is now potentially, for at least the time being, an ongoing inflationary problem?
Well, you're right, Dave. It is an issue that's being felt across the United States, and it's something that's driven by reckless spending that we've seen in Washington, and out of control several different times in Washington. They've just spent trillions and trillions of dollars, and that inflation, Dave, it's really functioning like a tax. It functions like a tax on those who can least afford it. When you're having to pay more for your groceries, when you're having to pay more on your energy bill, that's really taxing more of your income. So what we can do right here in the state of Michigan from a policy standpoint is, when this Biden inflation is taking bigger chunks out of your wallet, let's look for ways to put money back in. Cutting the state income tax, that would give every single person in the state of Michigan a pay increase, and working families, these people who are being hit the hardest by inflation, let's expand our earned income tax credit. That can provide them with targeted financial relief. It's very important.
You brought up the issue of education, in particular, an increased parental voice being returned to education. We've certainly seen investment, and COVID dollars helped in this process also of equipping schools with better air ventilation systems, in some cases a complete overhaul, in some cases upgrades, and the investment in technology when we were faced with and would be prepared for future remote learning. When we then get to the issue of the parental control, the parental voice, legislatively, how do we bring that into play with a state board of education, with state policy? What is the best way to bring some more of that control back to the local level, which is what I believe I'm hearing you say you want to do?
Well, absolutely. I think that the best outcomes for students happen when their parents are involved, and nobody cares more about their children than their parents. And you look at our third grade reading scores in our state right now; they're embarrassing. We need to focus on teaching our kids the basics: reading, writing, and math. And frankly, our state education leaders, from the state superintendent to the Department of Education in Lansing, have failed our children. So we need to. I'd be in favor of disbanding the State Board of Education, and let's return as many of these decisions to the local levels. Let's get parental involvement, and let's dedicate more resources to after-school tutoring. We need to make sure our children can do the basics: how to read, how to write, how to do math.
Would that or spending of that type, would you see that then as a one-time investment that we could sustain, or something that budgetarily would potentially be a concern? We all know that the federal dollars at some point will be gone. It will not be a sustainable funding source. So to make further investments, how do we guarantee that those, if they're proven successful, can stay in the budget long term?
Well, we're right now we are failing our students in our schools. So let's devote every resource to making sure that the dollars are following the students, and the dollars are going towards the students actually learning the basics: reading, writing, math. I think that as far as your budgetary priorities as a state, it's got to be making sure our children are learning, and that we're not failing our kids like we are right now, that those decisions are made locally, and then also making sure we're good stewards of our taxpayer dollars, and looking to make those select investments in critical infrastructure.
Everyone was impacted, and students took a very hard hit, as we've noted, during COVID. And no one wants to think of a lost set of years, or a lost set of students, or a lost graduating class. The seniors that came through and did graduate, yes, they were maybe the most impacted. But that long-term effect, when we look at the younger students, how do we best approach dealing with some of those things to try to re-engage, catch those students back up, bring everybody back to the level of learning when we were all faced with obviously very unexpected and unprecedented circumstances.
Absolutely. And we have to, like I said, make sure that we devote every resource to ensuring that our children catch up. From our children were set back. There's no two ways of saying about it. Between school closures and forced masking, that set our children back. So let's devote resources to after school tutoring programs. We need to make sure that we're taking every single step to helping children learn, and let's allow for more types of kids to have that education experience that works best for them. Let's look for education savings accounts to empower students to look to the schools that give them the best opportunity.
When it comes to the infrastructure, you focused on many areas, but this is also something potentially, when we look at the degree that everybody had to go remote, long term, are we set to either face a crisis by having the technology available to all of our students in both the populated areas and the more rural areas of the state, and are we seeing any advantages? Are there ways to blend the approach to education that can incorporate with the broadband access, with the technology being available, to make the best out of all of this and see a way where maybe we can have an improved approach moving forward?
Well, you touch on a very important point there, Dave, which is the necessity for rural broadband. That is a infrastructure necessity and a utility that everyone needs in the 21st century. I was up in Billings Township and talked to a family that they would have to drive to a McDonald's parking lot just to submit their homework assignments because of the lack of reliable internet access in that remote part of the 95th district. So that's not acceptable. They need to have access to be able to do your schoolwork in all parts of the district. And I talked to a farmer in the Beaverton area. He's had a farm it's one of these centennial farms. They've been in the family for more than 100 years, and he told me, I love this business. It's the family operation, but without broadband in the 21st century, you can't run a business. We need to get rural broadband to our rural communities.
In this district then, Midland County, portions of Gladwin County, as you've traveled the district, you now want to leave a final message with these prospective voters in the district you hope to represent. What would that final message to the voters be before the November election?
Yes, I would say two things. I ask for your vote because I'm working hard, earning this, and I'm prepared for the responsibility. Knocked on almost 10,000 doors in the 95th district with my team, visited every single township, been to the different school boards, and I've had 6 Ask Bill G meet and greets across the 95th district, met with job creators from Robinson Industries in one corner to snowmakers in the other. So I'm doing the work, and I will always go the extra mile for our district in Lansing. Secondly, I'm prepared for this responsibility. I was entrusted with America's highly classified secrets as an intelligence officer with the Defense Intelligence Agency. You can trust me to stand up for you in Lansing. I'm a marathoner, Dave. I've actually run a marathon, the Detroit Marathon, on Sunday. And I've got a spirit of endurance and hard work. I'd ask for the voters to break the tape together on November 8th.
Well, we appreciate your time to speak to all the issues, to speak to these prospective voters. We wish you best of luck the rest of the way on the campaign, and thank you very much for being with us.
No, I appreciate it, Dave. Thank you.
And we've been speaking with Bill G. Schuette. He is the Republican candidate for Michigan's 95th House District. I'm David Nicholas. For all of us at Meet the Candidates, please remember to go out and cast your vote on Tuesday, November 8th. All qualifying candidates were invited to participate in this series. Following the redraw of Michigan House, Michigan Senate, and congressional districts, check with local officials to make sure you are properly registered. Election Day is Tuesday, November 8th.